Chornobyl Liquidators then, a game with an intriguing concept, but in practice it's messier than a Friday night at your local. You step into the boots of various poor sods right after the Chernobyl disaster. One minute you're putting out fires, the next you're sweeping up radioactive dust. And I see what these developers were aiming for, a bit of that HBO drama flair, mixing in some entertainment and education. But lads, the simulator side of things is so off the mark, it's got more in common with a bloody Marvel movie than a serious look at a catastrophe that's still casting shadows today. Intrigued, my pedigree chums? Well, grab yourself a cuppa, maybe a biscuit if you're feeling fancy, and let's have a proper natter about this radioactive doldrum in today's review. The first level of Chornobyl Liquidators kicks off just right. You're chucked straight into the fiery jaws of hell, one of the first poor blokes to rock up after the reactor blows its top. Your job, helping out your fellow firefighters by taming the blazing beast. Now, I found it a bit clunky at times, faffing about with hoses and whatnot, but for the most part, it does what it sets out to do. But then the problems start rolling in like a Taco Bell on a bad hangover. Firstly, your hose doesn't interact with the environment, so you can go around in circles of fallen rock and it never gets taut or tied up. It just vanishes through solid objects like some kind of ghost hose. Then, as the level progresses, the tasks get more and more ridiculous. First, it's put out a fire, then it's tackle some radioactive debris with a shovel, but suddenly, you're then asked to be Spider-Man. Your task, scour the roof of one of the reactors, jumping up ledges, climbing extreme angles, all whilst lugging a ton of gear. But wait, there's actually more, because next you got your Incredible Hulk cameo going on, smashing reinforced steel pillars with your bare fists, creating a nice walkway to hop over. And then you're channeling your inner Doctor Strange, because even when you remove these bloody steel pillars with your bare hands, the ceiling above magically stays put like it's held by some invisible force. The next level sees you part of a cleaning squad, scrubbing radioactive dust or mopping the floors of the local town. Here you gain Deadpool-like powers, breathing in the potent stuff with nary a cough. And again, you'll be parkering around Chernobyl, culminating in one segment where the KGB suddenly wants you to delete files from a PC that exposes a cover-up. It turns into an utter fiasco. And there's the problem. You see, Chornobyl Liquidators needs to double down on one idea and stick to it. I like the premise of being the clean-up squad, but keep it there and flesh it out. Or if they fancy making a spy game about how the government reacted to the disaster, then be my guest. But what we've got here is a jumbled mess of ideas. Even worse than mini-games, like opening a door with a crowbar, or doing daft missions like finding 3 bottles of vodka for your sergeant. They totally detract from the serious vibe that they're aiming for. This disaster, it wrecked lives, yet countless more were saved by the brave souls of that day. And believe it or not, there's a story in this game. You and some researcher, who looks like she's just strolled out of the local meth lab, are working to uncover what happened. It's nonsense, poorly written and poorly acted. In games like this, you can usually forgive a bit of the old jank, but the gameplay's got to cover up for it. Unfortunately here, it's as flimsy as a cheap market knockoff. What really kills Chornobyl Liquidators, though, is the sheer sense of boredom. When you think about the horrifying day and what those brave men went through, the thrill of battling a fire, the horrors of seeing mates drop dead around you, it's a miracle the developers managed to make it feel like pure, utter boredom. They've hit the very bottom of the emotional checklist. The gameplay mechanics are as dull as dishwater. Putting out a fire, just hold the left mouse button. Cleaning radioactive dust, hold the left mouse button. Mopping up radioactive chemicals, you guessed it, hold the left mouse button. That's it. No more to it than that. Other tasks have you searching for items like a fuse, and that's where you realise how poorly designed the buildings are. Some doors open, some don't, and the buildings are more like mazes than actual places where you'd expect rooms to be. This toilet here, it has more doors than a Home Depot. It seems like they've tried to make it challenging, but instead it's just frustrating and boring as hell. And here's where I need to be honest with you lot. I managed just over 3 hours of this tripe before I couldn't take it anymore. I saw another room filled with radioactive dust and just sighed, knowing I'd be mindlessly holding my left mouse button to progress. It's like the Wish.com version of Power Wash Simulator. Graphically, Chornobyl Liquidators has its fair share of problems. I'm running a 4090, but still I got hit with dropped frames. Then there's the bugs. Here I fell into this crevice and got stuck and needed to restart the mission. In another, I cleaned the room as requested, but it wouldn't trigger the next part of the mission, and again I needed to restart. This then needs a good bit of polish, and it's not the worst looking game, but the art style can be a bit too bright at times, like you're in some kid's nursery instead of a Soviet era doomsday town. It's the little things that let it down. Take the lighting for example, so much potential to create atmosphere and show the horrors of Chernobyl, but there's nothing dynamic here. Look at this streetlight casting a shadow with the sun behind it, but these ones here, they couldn't give a shit about the laws of physics. Your own body is like a ghost too, unable to block out the light. Those fire hoses, the clipping on those is horrendous, where it's pointless to have them in the game. And the in-game cutscenes are mundane, with your body just warping into position to get it moving, and the opening cartoon-style cutscenes of each major mission look like it's buffering from Pornhub, where weird digital artifacts come throughout. That's what she said. The atmosphere is what's lost here, despite being a bit of a war zone. Everything, it feels so empty, so uninspired. When I look at some stills from the HBO series, I can't help but wonder if the vision here was just to copy the look and feel of that limited series masterpiece. Sound-wise then, there isn't much to get excited about either. The sound effects when you're jumping have a heavy thud, like you're falling from great heights carrying a million bricks. The voice acting, atrocious, and weirdly quiet compared to the rest of the game, like the voice actors were embarrassed themselves and wanted to whisper their lines. The problem goes back to atmosphere. The Geiger counter sounds are lacking. The echoes of your footsteps in pitch black always aren't done well at all, and the distant explosions are more make-believe in your head, because for the most part it's all very silent, all very dull. In the simulator genre I've definitely heard worse, but certainly I've heard better as well. So, Chornobyl Liquidators is a game that certainly had an interesting premise, and one that, done well, could have really helped youngsters learn about that tragic day, whilst bringing in the medium of video games to make it a form of entertainment that would have struck a chord or two. However, what you actually take away from that day is how boring it all was, how ridiculous the tasks were, where clean-up crews become spies in mere minutes, and how fire hoses that day took on a life of their own. It lacks focus, it lacks polish, and truth be told, it lacks education. If you're after all these things, then do yourself a favour and put that $20 to a copy of a DVD of the HBO classic. Until next time, my lovelies, Reggie out.